Hello everyone, welcome back to Parkitect, welcome back to campaign mode, and in today's episode we're going to be doing Honey Hills. As you can see, I've already completed this one with the optional goals as well. Thinking about it, I really should have started a brand new fresh campaign when I started doing this playthrough, but yeah, I haven't, so it is what it is. Let's read the explanation then. A small mountain resort is looking to expand its business while retaining its alpine charm, starting with the initial investment of a flying coaster as a flagship attraction. Develop this hillside forest into a thriving roller coaster paradise. So the goals are to have 400 guests in the park, no loan debt, have an operating profit of £2,000, an average park rating of 75%, and then the optional goals are 200 guests in the park by the end of December year 2. So let's get into it. Okay, now as far as I remember, this is an easy campaign, so hopefully it won't give us too much trouble meeting the goals in this one, and I can concentrate a bit more on the theming. So let's take a look at what we start with then. Put it in play because we've got a coaster going round already. So this is our flying coaster. Really nice layout, really like this one. Let's see what the stats are like on it as well. So it's a very high excitement, medium intensity, and we're charging £9. I think we could probably charge £12 for that, and that should be fine. It's an interesting sort of map, like the terrain is very hilly, so that's going to be quite a challenge to work with, I reckon. Yeah, the layout of it's just sort of one path all the way across, so we're going to have to think about what we're going to do for the layout there. Maybe some paths going off to the side and stuff, and a few terrain conforming coasters probably, I'd imagine, in this one. I really liked the playthrough that Silverette did for this map. I think that's one of the videos that actually got me into this game in the first place. From what I remember, he did like an Alpine style build. Not sure if we're going to go for that sort of thing in this one, but yeah, we'll just start building and see what happens, I guess. Let's take a look at the ride list. So yeah, loads of flat rides, or car rides rather, carousel, car ride, Ferris wheel, monorail and spiral slide. Thrill rides, we've got the Gravitron, Jumper and Drop Tower, and quite a lot of coasters actually as well, good selection. Alpine, Flying, Junior, Mini, Steel, Wild Mouse. I still think that we should research coasters and get something else that's not the Steel coaster, because I've built loads of them now. Junior coaster might work well in this map. Not sure about the other ones. I mean, we've got the right terrain for the Alpine coaster, but it's not one that I'm particularly excited about building. No transport rides, and a lock flume. Shops. So we've got, it's going to have to be the vending machine then for now, for food and drink, which isn't great, so we might have to research some shops and stalls once we've got another coaster. But yeah, we'll see how that goes as we get into the playthrough. So I think we'll just jump into the time lapse and see what happens. I'll see you over there. So this is actually my second attempt then at starting off this scenario, and the first time I went for a slightly sort of Alpine style build with buildings that you might see in a ski resort, something like that. And I wasn't happy with it at all, so this is attempt number 2, and I get something that I'm fairly happy with. It's quite generic looking, but it sort of fits the scenery around it, I guess. I didn't really know what to do for this one to make it varied and different, so I don't know. I think the theme that I go for, like I say, is quite generic, but I think it looks quite nice. Maybe it's somewhere in somewhere in Europe that's got these nice sort of villages with different coloured roofs and detailed buildings. I don't know, Germany or Poland maybe, or somewhere like that. But yeah, I think this first building that I put in, which is a food stall, sets the sort of scene for how it's going to look, for how the theming is going to look as we continue with the map. I believe that I put 2 customizable shops in there that sell umbrellas and vending machine stuff, because we literally had no food and drink stalls researched. So quite early on in the scenario, I think I do start researching shops, because that's obviously something that we need. Yeah, so that's what we start with really. Put down some wooden flooring, some various different path textures, and some brick walls to add a nice bit of detail there, and recolouring the benches. I think the benches can look a lot nicer now that we can recolour them and make them a little bit more custom. Yeah, so that's basically it for the start. We put a depot in there as well, or a depot, whatever you want to call it, because it's miles away from the main warehouse. So yeah, we need that in there for deliveries, otherwise it would be an absolute nightmare for the haulers. Not very efficient at all. So that does take quite a chunk of our money, just doing that. But yeah, this is one of these playthroughs where, again, I wanted to build 1 or 2 starter buildings just to identify the theme that we're going for, and then it gives something to work with. I do feel like this would be a small family-owned type park, rather than a huge, Six Flags type park. But we do get, spoiler alert, we do get a couple of thrill coasters in, well, including the flying coaster. So yeah, maybe they've got a bit of a budget at this park. I don't know. I really don't know what we're doing with this one, to be honest. I just sort of started playing and built whatever I could come up with that popped out of my head. The other problem is the scenery that's researched from the start is very, very limited. So I was having to leave things out like chimneys that I need to go back and do later on. I tried to do one out of heart shapes, but it didn't look very good. So yeah, also the textured roof from the adventure pack I thought would look quite good on some of these buildings. So we're just going to have to wait for things like that to come up in the research. And as I'm rambling away, you can see that a staff room has been put in the back there with a nice little cover on it. Not something that the guests are really going to see, but I just wanted to cover it up from the overhead perspective. Make it look like we've not just plunked it down there and left it. So onto the first coaster then. I managed to research the launch coaster. We're having to jump around with the research here to get the various things that we actually need for the park, because everything's a bit limited to start with. There was quite a few coaster types, but nothing that I really wanted to build. So yeah, we go for this sort of Mac launch coaster, I guess, or Intamin or something like that. I don't know. And yeah, it took me ages to get the layout right, but in the end I do get a layout that I'm pretty happy with. We start with a diagonal launch, and yeah, it goes into helix, I think is what I settled for, before coming down into the first inversion. I think it's actually quite interesting working with more diagonal pieces, because it makes the coaster look a bit more off-grid. And I wanted some good sort of path interaction there as well, so I built a 0G roll type thing over the path. So yeah, I think that'll be interesting for the guests as they walk through into the main sort of plaza area, the main square. Yeah, and then that's really just it. A couple of inversions, a few helixes, and yeah, lots of interaction with the path and the area around it. Obviously later on we'll try and theme this all up to look sort of suitable in the area, to fit in with the area rather. It took me ages to get the brake run at the right height, because I I wanted a sloped brake run rather than a flat one, so yeah, finding that height was an absolute pain, but I managed to do it eventually, and then I had to redo all the track around it to suit that brake run. But it is worth it because, you know, it's a brake run of my dreams. It's the one that I wanted. Yeah, by the looks of it, I had an additional helix in there to make it all make sense. So I'm not really sure what I ended up doing, but it's I moved this piece in the end, so it's just the one. Yeah, that looks better actually. Yeah, so obviously there's quite a lot of work to do. I have to do a bit of terrain work there to make everything fit in and not look ridiculous. Yeah, at this point I think I was starting to realise that the main challenge with this scenario is the terrain, because it's obviously very hilly, which works for a sort of terrain conforming coaster, but I had to do a lot of tunnelling with this one as well to get everything in the layout to fit in. So yeah, you can see there it goes into a tunnel, and we're going to cover all that sort of stuff up anyway later on to make it look better, I suppose. Yeah, there's sort of two main parts to this layout really. We've got the launch section and the first sort of helix and inversion, and then we've got all the rest of the layout on the other side of the path. And I think it's quite an interesting layout. I'm pretty happy with the way the whole layout looks. My only problem was picking a colour scheme, and I'm still not sure if I'm completely happy with the one we've got here with the red, but I felt that will have to do for now. We can always try and change it later. So moving on then, the next thing that I put in is a car ride, because we didn't have any car rides in the park at this point, just 2 coasters. So I felt we needed something for the families and the non-thrill seeking guests. I did think about putting a Ferris wheel in, but I just couldn't find a spot where it looked good. And again, with the terrain in this park, there's not a lot of flat areas to put stuff on, so yeah. so instead I made a car ride which uses up far more flat land. I know that makes no sense whatsoever, but I felt the best way to handle the sort of layout and stuff for this park was to keep all the paths in the middle and then just have the rides going off to one side or another, because they can work with the land, whereas, you know, you don't want your guests walking up and down massive hills all the time. So the next thing I put in then is a junior coaster, and this took ages to get the layout right, because although it's just helixes, obviously it had to work around the car ride and the terrain and everything else, while still keeping up enough momentum to make it around the layout, and obviously not being too intense and all that sort of thing, because it's a family coaster. And yeah, it just sort of spirals around above the car ride and goes back to the station really. It's not that interesting. Again, you can't really do that much with a junior coaster, but yeah, I think it looks fine. I decided there to give it an extra helix and a slightly bigger lift hill, probably because it was going too slow at some point, some testing, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's fine. It does the job. Good roster of coasters in the park now. I don't think we need any more at this point. And again, I was struggling a lot with the colour scheme. I tried every colour going, and yeah, I think I settled for this yellow in the end. I'm not sure. And that sort of led me on to thinking, well, this coaster station is really high, which doesn't look great, so I turned this all into a big building basically that covers up the station for both the car ride and the coaster. And although it doesn't look great at the moment because of the height and the paths going up, we do manage to make it fit in and work quite nicely in the end. Yeah, we get something of interesting design. We needed a tower like spire to break up all the flatness and rectangularness of everything. And I just found this interesting technique, which I'm sure probably has been done before, but so I'm not going to claim I invented it, but just using the pillars, the edge of the pillars, to make a decorative sort of texture on the edge on the corners of the tower. I'm not sure what you'd call them pieces, trim pieces I guess, or something like that. And yeah, other than that, it's just a few windows and some bits of wood inside to cover up anything that you can see through. And then using pillars for the tower on the top and a very basic roof, so nothing too crazy at all. But yeah, I think it looks pretty nice. I'm not really sure what theme this fits into at all. Wouldn't say it's particularly alpine, but it fits in with the area, and that's all we want really. I think we've got a nice enough composition using the sort of building materials that we've got. As you can see, I've now researched the adventure roofs, so they've gone into this building as well, which adds another different roof texture and makes it a bit more interesting. I'm not going to lie, at this point I am getting to the point where I'm struggling to come up with different design ideas, and you know, there's obviously, because the pieces in this game are quite plain, you want to try and do different things with them, and I feel like sometimes I do get stuck in a rut and I'm just doing the same sort of styles over and over again, so I really need to try and think outside the box, and try and get a bit of originality, a bit of variation going, so you're not just seeing me build the same things in every episode. With this next building, I think, yeah, we managed to do something a little bit different with it. This is really just a building to hide the ugly tunnel path, the ugly tunnel for the coaster that goes in diagonally, so I had to work a way around that. And then here I decided to do an interesting trick using the, what do you call them windows? The sticky out windows on a diagonal piece, and I think that actually works out quite well. And then using the small spire or whatever it is to cover up the top bit, I think that works out quite well. I actually think that looks kind of western, like that could work in a western theme as well. But I think that sits quite nicely on the side of this building. Maybe it's a bit random, but I don't know, it adds a bit of variation. And yeah, again, I was just trying something a bit different with this building. And then I end up actually sticking the vending machine in here, because by this point I had different shops researched. So the main food court then turns into a burgers and hot drinks stands, stalls rather, so people can actually get proper food and drink in the park now, which will hopefully improve the park rating a bit. Although by the looks of it, it's pretty high at the moment, so they've been surviving on just crisps out of the vending machines so far. So I guess as long as the guests have got something to eat in this game, they're not that bothered. And once this building went in, I'm going to have to sort of speed up my commentary a bit, because I know that we're near to completion of the goals. I did say this is an easy campaign. I did have to go back once, I think, to one save point, because the guests had left the path a right mess and I'd not employed enough handymen or janitors, so I had to go back once to an earlier save and just redo it with more janitors, and then I easily made the goals by the end of December year 2. So yeah, you'll see that coming up in a minute. So you put the vending machine in now, just sort out the path a bit there as well, and then we get another flat ride in next to it. I was planning to have another row of buildings here, but I just couldn't think what to do for the building next to this one, and it would have been too high for the area, so I just finished off this building, added a back to it, and stuck a jumper next to it as well. Jumper ride, not, cardigan. Crap joke of the day there, sorry. So, yeah, at this point I'm doing some sort of structure for the inversion of the coaster, and I'm not really happy with how it looks, but it's difficult because we haven't got that many diagonal pieces in vanilla. But I think I will go back and try and do a little bit more with that at a later stage, because yeah, it doesn't look too good. It just looks like a really basic structure. But yeah, I've got no idea really what I can do with that. I've got a feeling that if we ever get the steampunk roofs, I think there's diagonal ones of them that would fit in perfectly. Especially with these borders that I've got in, that are just plain and open at the moment, that look like they need a roof in there. But yeah, we'll come back to that. Here's the other flat ride going in, then the jumper ride. Yeah, I was going to add a roof to that, so that we've got an indoor ride in case it rains, but then I decided it was just too high and it didn't look good because of the height clearance you need on the ride. There you can see me toying with the idea of putting another building in as well, and then I scrapped that and just finish off this one. And yeah, there's the roof that got removed. Yeah, it just didn't look good. I think also it's too big a footprint for a roof, this ride. It can work, but I think I'll try that maybe with a smaller flat ride at some point. But then we don't even need any more rides in this park because we've now met the goals. So yeah, which you will see us cut to in just a sec, hopefully. And that concludes it for the time lapse. I'll see you back in the live portion. Here we are then in a rainy Honey Hills. As you can see, everything's completed, so we don't need to worry about goals anymore. There we go, the sun's come out as well. And this is what we've got so far. So the main area, I'd say, is 90% complete. Just going to add a bit more detail, try and do something with this if we can. God, imagine if I needed another thrill ride to complete the scenario just to quickly pop down. And all it gives me is the inverted dark ride. Terrible. So we'll go back to decorations. Park's making plenty of money now, so I don't need to worry about putting the research up a bit. Obviously we needed 2,000 a month profit for 2 months to pass the goals, so that's fine, we don't need to worry about that now. Yeah, I probably won't be adding any more rides in now because it's operating fine, you know, everything's running okay. We've got a drop tower over here which I'm not sure if you saw me put in, or if I even mentioned. I don't think I did. So yeah, might want to do a little bit more with this station, but you know, I think it looks pretty good. This could probably have a transfer track in it actually, or is that meant to be? Yeah, meant to go there maybe. Yeah, and then a coaster station for this one. Tidy all this up a bit, and then we're done really. So I don't think this will take us too long. Oh, I need to theme all this up as well. But again, I think that could be pretty basic theming. You never see a really heavily detailed car ride, do you? Unless it's at Disney or something. Yeah, I think we'll just get straight back into a time lapse and finish off the park. So I'll see you all over there. Welcome back to the time lapse then, everyone. And the first thing that we're going to do is start to theme up this car ride and junior coaster area. I wasn't really sure what to do here. Obviously we had a lake with loads of water in it, like lakes usually do have, and I thought I'd just put a load of rock work and some bushes around the lake to blend it in quite nicely and give it a bit more of a scenic feel. Obviously we've got the cars going in and out of these tunnels as well, So I wanted to put some buildings on top of the tunnels, and yeah, that's sort of what we do here. It's very basic, this sort of theming. I didn't really know where to go with these buildings, so I just went for some nice different coloured roofs and some nice trims and stuff. They don't have to be incredibly detailed because people are only going to see them from the ride. And I guess a lot of these car rides just have sort of very basic theming. They're not going to be sort of high budget attractions really, so that's fine. We give this one just a little paved sort of garden area for whatever reason. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what we do in this area. You can see that I've now unlocked chimneys in the research, so I can actually put some chimneys on buildings. And I went back to the main street buildings, or the main plaza buildings, whatever you want to call them, to put some chimneys on those as well, and just sort of complete everything off there. Here you can see me putting some bushes in. Obviously we've got the nice rock work going over the track. So yeah, you get a few things to look at while you're on the ride. And obviously there's some good elements with the coaster flying over the top as well. I think that would look quite cool on ride. So the next thing that I wanted to put in was, sorry about the pause there by the way, just sorting something out, the lift hill for the coaster. We needed some sort of catwalk, so we put that in. These are always quite difficult to do in vanilla, but I do think they look quite good to have on the junior coasters. So yeah, just using some roof pieces and some pillars and borders. Very basic stuff there, nothing really more to add to that. I don't think I actually ended up doing transfer tracks for either of my coasters in this park in the end. I'm pretty sure that the flying coaster that we start with has got one, but yeah, I just got, well, not lazy, but I just kind of forgot to do them, to be honest, so yeah, that's why we haven't got them. Now you can see with a bit more trim and detail on the buildings, they look a little bit nicer, they fit in a bit more with our sort of European village idea that we've got going on here. And yeah, I think because it's sort of a junior or family ride, a kids ride, it's nice to have the brighter rooftops, the brighter buildings, make it look a little bit more fun for them, I guess. And now it got to the point where I had to work out what the heck I'm going to do with this structure over the inversion here that goes over the path. Obviously, because it's diagonal, it's very difficult to know what to do with. I wasn't happy with what we had before, like I've already said, so I got rid of that completely and started afresh. And I thought I'm just going to have to do this out of basic shapes. It's the only way really we can get the diagonal shapes that we need for this. So that's what I went for, and yeah, I'm much happier with the end result of this. I'm glad that I went back to change it. And yeah, just using very small, like 12, 13, 12.13 pieces to get some trim work on there, and obviously make some borders and whatnot for the pillars. And it actually took a lot longer than what you see in this time lapse. I've cut quite a bit out because I did have to obviously check for clearance, so I had to keep moving it along. But then at the end of the inversion, as it's coming in, there's a helix right next to it, to the right of it, so I had to make sure there was enough clearance on that as well. So yeah, it's very tight, but I did, keep pausing it in the right places just to check that the clearance, and they don't bash their heads going through this inversion. And yeah, it all works out fine in the end. You can see there as well, I'm using those little Western Spire pieces to add a bit more shape to the roof as well. I think they're quite a cool piece to use in different ways, and get different, because it's one of the sort of different shape pieces in the game. Sometimes it's difficult to find something that gives you a little bit of variety in this sort of gridded look. And again, I have struggled a bit with this park. I do feel like what I've built is quite generic and is quite similar to what I've done before. And yeah, I think that's the problem now. I've been playing the game so long. When I do these vanilla builds, is too easy to just use the same techniques that I've used before. So I don't know, in the next one I'm going to have to try and get more creative and try and think of different things that we can do. But I think the building style in this one works for the map that we've got here, to be honest, because it's sort of like an alpine-y type village. It's quite a hilly landscape, and this sort of scenery, it looks nice, it's pleasing on the eye, even if it is sort of thing that you've seen a few times before. Also having to work out the sort of path work going through here, because we had a diagonal path, and adding some foliage to hide all the sort of ugly bits, adding some plants and some trees in there. Oh, sorry, just needed a drink there, so I'm getting a bit of heartburn. Horrible. Now you can see that we're trying to blend in all the tunnely bits, and at this point I went for the aesthetic over the practicality and the comfort of the coaster, because the tunnels, I think, look okay when they're just one piece and they're just straight. They go straight into the wall. It just gives you this sort of rectangle tunnel that it goes into. If you start doing that with helixes and curved pieces, they don't look so good. So I've edited the coaster layout a bit so that it goes straight with no banking into the tunnels. Yes, it's a little bit less realistic for the coaster, I guess. A little less smooth transitions, but it looks really nice the way it goes in through the tunnels. And yeah, that's the cool thing about this landscape. You can do lots of different tunnels and bridges and stuff like that, and loads of different height variations. I think that's a fun thing about playing a campaign map like this, working out what to do with the terrain and trying to use it to the best of your advantage. And yeah, we are now sort of halfway through building this coaster station that I haven't talked about at all yet. This is very generic. Again, I didn't really know what to do with this one. I wanted it different to the stuff that we've got in the park already, but following along the same theme. So for the windows, I'm using the trellis sort of piece. I can never remember what that's called, but it works really well as almost like a pub type window, like an old inn or guest house type building that you see in a lot of sort of towns with more old-fashioned architecture. Well, you see them everywhere, really, these sort of inns, especially in the UK, but around Europe as well. And that's the sort of style we're going for that building. Makes no sense really being a coaster station, but it works out fine, and it looks nice, and it fits in with the rest of the theming, so that's fine. And then this is really the last thing for this area of the park, and I wanted to make an entrance building. Although obviously the park entrance is a bit further back from where we are, I wanted to give the illusion that this is the park border, and this is where you enter and where the ticket booths and whatnot would be. I could have stuck ATMs in there or something, but I didn't bother. I just thought we'd make a nice entrance, and that's what we did. Obviously I had to be very careful again with the clearance of this coaster, because I wanted the element of the helix of the coaster to go through the roof kind of thing. I think that would look really cool as you're coming into the park, and build up the excitement for the guests wanting to ride this coaster. So yeah, I think that looks kind of cool, although it was quite tricky to get all the clearances and everything right. You can't always tell sort of how long something's worked on when it's sped up by like 10 times for a time lapse. But yeah, you can see the game's paused and the train's in this section at the moment, so you can see that the clearance is all absolutely fine there. I need to stop banging on about clearance in this episode. And yeah, just trust myself that I've done it right. Using a lot of the same colours as well for this building, then your typical sort of red and sort of maroon roofs, along with typical beige walls, and then using the trellis type piece again for the windows there. I also put a sign up saying Honey Hills. Didn't bother doing one on the back
saying goodbye, come back again soon, or anything like that. We don't really need to worry too much about doing things like that for these maps, I don't think. And then just making it look a bit nicer with some flowers and stuff like that. So we move on now to the back of the park and the so far unloved area where we've got our drop tower, and behind that obviously the original flying coaster. Didn't know at all what to do with this, so I went for what I felt was a bit of a Bavarian theme. I did things a little differently to normal this time. I made one wall piece and saved it as a blueprint and then copied it across everywhere. And I think that worked really well for efficiency because it saved me a lot of time in making all these walls individually. And then I wanted a sort of feature section at the front with a jutting out wall. After I built all this, I realised that it wasn't really the best thing to do because you need room, and I'm going to have to bang on about clearance again here, but for the drop tower to actually function properly, you need more than one tile, if that makes sense. So the guests stick out further than the one tile, so you can't put a full roof in. You'll see what I mean when I start doing the roof on this thing, but yeah, it was basically a pain because I was only able to use basic shapes to do the roof bit round the drop tower, and then the rest of it just had to sort of blend in with it, and I wasn't overly happy with how it turned out, but it's fine. At this point I think I just wanted to get the park done because last time I worked on this I spent most of the day doing it, so it was quite a big job. But in the end, I'm glad with the way everything turned out. You can see there what I mean with the roofs. I think actually, looking back at it now, I think it looks fine. It looks okay, because from ground level, you've always got to bear in mind the guests aren't going to see beyond that roof. They will see it when they're on the drop tower, but hopefully, they'll be going up. Well, they'll be coming down fast anyway, so they won't really notice it on the way down. And on the way up, they won't be too worried about the theming because they'll be more concerned. More scared for going on the ride, I guess. Unless they're not. But let's not worry about that. As long as it looks fine in Parkitect, we don't care. So, just doing some finishing touches on this building then, and then I put in a restaurant building as well because we haven't got any food stalls at the back of the park, and I needed something there for the guests. Which we'll move on to in just a sec. I think I also tried to find somewhere to put a bathroom around here as well, because we haven't got any of those at the back of the park, but I didn't want to make a building because I was being lazy, so I just found a place to sink it in underground. Here you can see then the shops and stalls have gone in for the food and drink, and I believe that I had to place another depot here because even though we're at the back of the park, it's still quite a long way to the deliveries building, which for some reason was placed like miles away. I guess it's because, it didn't really want to be seen too much in the park. What really I should have done is flattened some of this land out a bit and made some sort of main plaza right at the back here. But then I guess that means the walk to this bit would be really long for the guests, so it's difficult to know what to do with this park because it's one of those maps you don't want to do a massive park, and you don't need to do a massive park because the goals aren't really too challenging to meet. Just sort of utilising the space to the best of your ability is part of the challenge here really as well. Sometimes it's difficult when you're making a really big park to do everything with nice detail. I think that's where I struggled here because this bit's very separate to the other bit, the main sort of area, and there's kind of nothing in between really, just a bridge. But I do try and make everything look a bit nicer. I double this path up so that it's a bit better for guest flow, and then I realised that we've got loads of sections which are just sort of one path anyway, so it's kind of pointless to do that. But, you know, hopefully it'll stop it getting too busy in this area, I guess. And, yeah, I do think a lot of this last bit I was just rushing to get done, to be honest, because I didn't want it to carry on through to another day. You know how it is sometimes where you're like, yeah, I've met the goals, I've done most of the theming, I'm happy with how most of it looks, I just want to get finished on this one, and then that gives us a chance to move on to the next one. But I mean, I'm still happy with how everything turned out in the end. I think it's a nice park, that's the best way to put it. It's nothing groundbreaking, it's nothing too original or creative, but it's just a nice looking park. And I guess that's all I can ask for. Especially when we started with very, very limited scenery items. You know, decoration, I had to research a lot of decoration. But yeah, that pretty much brings us to the end of the time lapse and a build for this episode. So what we're going to do is jump right in to do a final park tour and have a quick look around and ride the coasters. So I'll see you all over there. Okay, so welcome to Honey Hills in all its glory then. This is the completed park, or as completed as we're going to do. Yeah, it's sort of a mismatch of various European themes, different building styles that you'd see in different sort of alpine style villages and things like that, I guess. But yeah, I think it looks quite nice as a park as a whole. So should we take a little bit more of a detailed look and ride a couple of the coasters? Here's our entrance building then, with the coaster element flying through there. And I really like the way this composition looks as well with this bridge and the tunnels and stuff. I think there's lots going on there. It's quite fun to watch the coaster go round. Obviously we'll take a look at that in a bit. And I added some flower beds in here with this inversion as well. This is how our towers for the inversion ended up looking in the end. I think they're fine. They're better than what we had before anyway. And this is my favourite building in the park, our centre plaza sort of restaurant. Everyone will sort of congregate in this area and then make their way to different rides. Obviously we've got the combined junior coaster and car ride station. I think we'll take a ride on the junior coaster first actually. So here's a look at the stats if you want to see them. Pretty low intensity as standard for junior coaster. We only have one train on this. Yes, we do. Not sure why that is, but not to worry anyway. I'm going to speed it up a bit until we're up the lift hill so that this doesn't end up getting too long, this video. But yeah, very, very standard junior coaster layout. Loads of helixes basically, but it's a little bit more interesting because it's flying over the car ride as well and doing various helixes over the car ride, I suppose. Not really an awful lot more to say on this one. I did struggle actually for ages trying to get the right track colour on this one. I might have mentioned it before. It was kind of hard to find something that worked, but in the end we went for this sort of golden yellow type colour. Yeah, again, lots of interaction between the coaster and the car ride, so I think that's pretty cool. Over here then we've got a building to house this coaster and hide away the indoor section, and other than that it just hosts a vending machine. So yeah, very elaborate building for very little usage. You can see the vending machine in there. Got our jumper ride here, like the colour of that one. I think purple always looks good with all these colours. And then going up to the back of the park we've got our sort of Bavarian area, which is very lightly themed, just some buildings really to cover up these rides. See the drop tower there, or the shop tower rather, coming up, and our flying coaster over here as well, which obviously I didn't build that, so we're not going to take a ride on that one, but we will take a ride on our launch coaster. I don't know if this would be a Mack or an Intamin one. On here it's called the hydraulically launched coaster. I don't think I ever changed the train colour on that either actually. Don't tell me there's only one car on this one. There is, why have we only got... That's really bad. Obviously I have built block sections. I have no idea why we've only got one car operating. I never noticed that before. But yeah, I guess I was going to say it wouldn't get stuck halfway through, but I don't think we have a mid-course brake run on this one anyway. But that's annoyed me a bit, actually. Quick look at the stats. Ultra extreme excitement, that must be all the tunnels and sort of interactive elements, and a high intensity, so we've done well with the stats for this one. So it's a launch into this first section of helixes, into that inversion, and then into a 0G barrel roll type thing. And then we come out into the second section of the ride, which is probably my favourite section. I really love the way that inversion looks, and these helixes as well through these tunnels. Yeah, this is my favourite part of the park, actually. I think that's my favourite building. This is my favourite area of the park, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, quite a short one. Although I think this video will still be about 45 minutes in length. But yeah, let's take a look at the map and see what we've got next. As you can see then, we are smashing through the scenarios, the campaigns, whatever you want to call them. We'll probably do highway hijinks next. But I can also see sort of lingering in the background there. We've got Orchard Acres, which I don't even want to think about yet. Because it will give me severe anxiety. So we're going to do highway hijinks next, I think, and I think that'll be an interesting one because we've got two sides of the park across the highway to build on. So yeah, that'll be in the next one. Thank you very much for watching this one, and I'll see you all next time. Bye then.